Alright, let's get real. Ever noticed how some people just love to push your buttons? They interrupt, make snide remarks, and act as if your time and feelings are just an afterthought. And somehow, we're expected to smile and let it slide. Not today. If you're done dealing with people who don't respect you, this video is exactly what you need. Today, I'm laying out some brutally honest, maybe even a bit controversial, ways to handle disrespect without losing your cool or your self-respect. So, strap in, because by the end of this, you'll have all the tools you need to show people exactly where your boundaries lie. Let's jump in. First up, the silent stare. This is one of my all-time favorite moves, and trust me, it's subtle but effective. When someone is openly rude or disrespectful, there's nothing that throws them off more than a long, calm, completely unfazed stare. Here's why it works. People who disrespect others are usually fishing for a reaction. They want to see you stammer or react. Flustered, maybe even ready to snap back. They're baiting you, hoping you'll take the hook, letting them drag you into their drama, make you question yourself, or feel small. But when you just look at them, no words, no expression, the power dynamic flips instantly. Now, I know this might sound a bit passive-aggressive, but hear me out. There's something deeply unsettling for them when they don't get the reaction they expected. By holding that steady, silent stare, you're saying without a single word, I'm not playing this game with you. It's a subtle, powerful way of taking back control without even lifting a finger. Sometimes, that silent stare is the strongest, clearest no you'll ever say. Let me tell you about a time this technique worked like a charm. I was in a group meeting, and this one guy just wouldn't stop talking over me, cutting me off like he was on a personal mission. You know the type, loud, overconfident, acting like everyone's there to absorb his wisdom. I tried interjecting politely, but he wasn't letting up. So finally, I just leaned back in my chair, crossed my arms, and held his gaze. No blinking, no expression, just 5 solid seconds of calm, unwavering eye contact. I held that stare for a few more seconds, letting the tension build. The best part? Everyone else at the table started looking at him, curious to see what he'd do next. And you know what happened? He got visibly uncomfortable, stumbled over his words, and suddenly found every excuse to look anywhere but at me. For the rest of the meeting, he didn't interrupt me once. That silent stare did more than any words could have, and it didn't just work in the moment, it changed his attitude toward me entirely. After that, he actually started treating me with more respect, as if he'd finally realized I wasn't someone he could just bulldoze. Sometimes, you have to show people who you are without saying a word. But let's take this a step further, because this technique isn't just a power move. Embracing the silent stare is a reminder, to them and to yourself, that you don't have to dance to someone else's tune. You don't owe anyone an emotional reaction, and you certainly don't have to prove your worth to people who refuse to see it. This is about reclaiming your space, your peace, and your dignity. Too often, when someone is disrespectful, we feel this urge to defend ourselves, to make our case, or even worse, to let it slide. We don't want to make a scene, so we let things slide. But the silent stare? It's not about aggression, it's about showing that you're grounded, unbothered, and unapologetically in control of your own emotions. And here's the thing, it's also about accountability. People who habitually disrespect others often do it without a second thought, because they've never been called out, never faced any real consequence for it. But when you give them that silent, deadpan look, it's like holding up a mirror. They're suddenly alone with their behavior. You're not saying they're wrong, you're showing them. And most people don't like seeing themselves that way. That's why it works. I've noticed this tactic does more than just get someone to back off, it strengthens your own sense of self-worth. Standing there, silent and still, you're reinforcing to yourself that their words or actions can't shake you. I used to be the person who'd nervously laugh off rude comments or try to explain myself when someone questioned my choices. But honestly, that just drained my energy and left me feeling frustrated. Learning to just look at someone and let that silence settle in the room without backing down. Total game changer. It feels like a small act of defiance, a quiet but powerful declaration of self-respect. So, if someone's being rude, crossing boundaries, or making you feel less than, try the silent stare. Just look at them and let them feel the weight of your calm. You'll be amazed at how uncomfortable it makes them, and how empowered it makes you feel. The silent stare sends a clear message: I respect myself too much to get dragged into your negativity. And that's a message worth sending. Now, here's another underrated secret weapon: silence itself. When someone disrespects you, one of the most powerful responses is no response at all. I know what you're thinking, silence might seem passive, like you're letting them get away with it. But here's the truth, silence is anything but passive. It's a choice, and sometimes, it's the boldest, loudest answer you can give. When someone's pushing, hoping to get a reaction, that silence can speak volumes. When someone throws negativity your way, they're trying to pull you into their drama, to make you feel small or defensive. But when you don't engage, when you let their words linger in the air without a response, you're forcing them to sit alone with their behavior. And that silence? It's deafening. Here's why it's so effective. People who disrespect others expect a reaction. They're fishing for a fight, a justification, or just some validation for their behavior. But silence says, I'm not giving you my energy. By not engaging, you're keeping control of the conversation and signaling, I'm not here to entertain your disrespect. Sometimes, the most powerful message you can send is by not saying anything at all. It's a quiet, subtle reminder that they're not worth your time or words. I remember once being in a situation with someone who couldn't resist making these little digs, you know the type, the person who disguises insults as jokes and then brushes it off as harmless fun. One day, he made another unnecessary comment, and instead of laughing it off or defending myself, I just stayed silent. He made a snide remark about my work, clearly just trying to get a rise out of me. Normally, I might have explained myself or even shot back a comment. But this time, I just looked at him, raised an eyebrow, and said absolutely nothing. I let his words hang in the air, let him sit in that awkward silence. And you know what? He didn't know what to do. He looked at me, then down, mumbled something, and moved on. That was the last time he tried that with me. It was like he finally realized that without my reaction, there was no power to gain. And that's the beauty of silence. It starves disrespect of the attention it craves. Here's the deeper message. When you choose silence, you're choosing yourself. You're saying, I value my peace over your opinion of me, and that's not just empowering, it's revolutionary. So often, we feel pressured to respond, to explain ourselves, to defend our choices, or to prove our worth to people who frankly aren't interested in respecting us. But by embracing silence, you're refusing to play by their rules. You're taking a stand without lifting a finger, letting them know you're firmly in control. You're right, it's not just about controlling the situation, it's about reclaiming your energy. Silence acts as a filter, keeping your peace intact and blocking the negativity others try to project onto you. The moment you stop feeling the need to respond to every rude comment, every passive-aggressive jab, you free yourself. You stop giving people access to your inner world and start living on your own terms. I'll be honest, learning to use silence wasn't easy for me. I used to think that if I didn't defend myself, I'd look weak or passive. But then I started noticing something interesting. Every time I responded to people who disrespected me, I'd end up drained and frustrated. But when I held my tongue, when I let their comments pass by like white noise, I felt lighter, stronger, more in control. It's like I took back a piece of my power every time I chose silence over reaction. So here's my challenge for you. The next time someone disrespects you, just pause. Take a deep breath, look them in the eye, and say nothing. Let your silence speak for itself. You might be surprised by how powerful it makes you feel and how quickly it disarms them. You'll be surprised by how uncomfortable they get, and how freeing it feels for you. Embrace silence as your answer, because sometimes, saying nothing is the most powerful statement of all. Now, here's a big one. Stop explaining your choices. This might hit home for a lot of us. Think about how many times you've made a decision for yourself, only to be met with a barrage of, why? Why did you do that? Why didn't you go to that event? Why'd you take that job? People act like they're entitled to an explanation for every choice we make. But here's the truth, they're not. Your decisions are yours, and you don't owe anyone an explanation for how you live your life. It might sound a bit controversial, but let's be real. If someone's questioning your choices, they're usually not looking to understand. They're often looking to judge, to poke holes, to make you second-guess yourself, or even to validate their own choices by making you doubt yours. And here's the thing, you don't have to play along. When you stop explaining yourself, you're reclaiming your autonomy. You're showing them, and yourself, that your life is yours to lead, without needing their approval or understanding. Your life isn't up for debate. Let's dig into why people feel so entitled to an explanation in the first place. When others question your choices, it's often because your decisions challenge their worldview. Maybe you're taking a risk they're too afraid to take, or perhaps you're stepping out of a norm that gives them comfort. Your independence and willingness to do things differently can make them uncomfortable, and asking you to explain is often their way of trying to pull you back into their comfort zone. But here's the kicker, just because they feel uneasy doesn't mean you're responsible for reassuring them. Your life isn't a public service announcement. You don't owe anyone a justification for your choices. I remember when I decided to switch careers, moving from a secure job to something I was genuinely passionate about, but that also came with a lot more risk. As soon as people heard, it was as if I'd announced I was moving to Mars. Questions poured in. Why would you leave a stable job? How are you going to make it work? At first, I'd try to explain, talking about how I wanted something more fulfilling. Sense of freedom that comes and you stop justifying your decisions. It's you standing firmly in your own truth, knowing that your choices are valid simply because you made them. I remember when I decided to switch careers, I used to give long-winded explanations, talking about how I had a plan, how it was the right move for me. But the more I explained, the more people questioned me, poking holes in my choices and making me feel like I had to prove myself. Then one day, someone asked me, "Why would you leave that job?" And instead of giving a detailed answer, I simply replied, "Because I wanted to." No extra details, no breakdown of my strategy, just a simple answer. And let me tell you, it felt amazing. The silence that followed was everything. People didn't know how to respond because I'd taken away their power to question my decisions. And you know what? Eventually, they stopped asking. Here's the real beauty of not explaining yourself. It's freeing. It's about standing in your own truth, confident that your decisions are enough because you made them. When you stop justifying your actions, you give yourself permission to live authentically, without the weight of other people's expectations. You stop wasting your energy on explanations and start pouring it into actually living the life you want. Here's the powerful lesson: your life doesn't need an audience vote. Not every decision has to be analyzed or approved by others. When you stop explaining yourself, you're sending a clear message: I'm confident enough in my choices that I don't need your approval. Think about it. When was the last time you saw a truly confident person breaking down their decisions for others? Probably never. People who own their lives don't need external validation. They know that the only approval that matters is their own. Look, I've been there. I used to be the person who would give a full PowerPoint presentation just to explain why I was doing something, hoping to get everyone on board. But over time, I realized that constantly explaining myself was only making me second-guess my choices. So I made a pact with myself: if someone asks about a decision, I'll give a brief answer, maybe a sentence or two. And if they push for more, I smile and move on. And you know what? Life got a lot lighter. The more I stopped explaining, the more confident I became in my own decisions. So here's my challenge to you: the next time someone questions your choices, resist the urge to over-explain. Let your confidence speak for itself. Explaining yourself, just say, "Because I wanted to," or "That's what felt right for me." Then, let the silence speak for itself. Watch how powerful that simple statement is. You'll feel stronger, more in control, and more at peace with yourself. And the best part? You'll realize that your choices don't need anyone else's stamp of approval. They're valid simply because you made them. Now, let's talk about keeping your distance. Let's be real. Sometimes the best way to handle people who don't respect you is to just keep your distance. I know it sounds harsh, maybe even a little cold, but here's the hard truth: not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. If someone is consistently disrespecting you, one of the healthiest moves you can make is to give yourself some space from them. This doesn't mean you hate them or that you're being dramatic. It means you respect yourself enough to protect your energy. Keeping your distance isn't about being mean or ignoring people. It's about choosing where and how you spend your time and energy. Think of your life as a limited access club. Not everyone gets a VIP pass. If someone's constantly disrespecting you, they don't deserve a front row seat in your world. Crossing your boundaries, making you feel small, or just radiating negativity, why on earth would you keep them close? It's okay to step back. In fact, it's crucial. Distance can give you the clarity to see things for what they really are, free from the fog of emotional manipulation or guilt. Think about it. When you keep people who disrespect you close, it's like inviting them to a mental and emotional buffet where they take, criticize, and judge as much as they want. And then we wonder why we feel drained, anxious, or frustrated. Giving yourself space from these people isn't just a choice, it's an act of self-preservation. It's about protecting your mental health, preserving your peace, and making room for people who truly respect and uplift you. Letting go of the guilt around distancing yourself can be liberating. You are not obligated to keep disrespectful people in your orbit. Let me share a story. I once had a friend who would always find a way to make snide comments about every choice I made, my career, my relationships, even my taste in music. At first, I thought, well, that's just how they are. Maybe I'm overreacting. So I kept them around, thinking maybe it would get better. But it never did. At first, I tried brushing it off, thinking it wasn't that big of a deal. But over time, those little jabs started getting under my skin. I realized I was walking on eggshells, always bracing myself for the next criticism, the next joke that felt more like a punch. One day, I decided to try a different approach. I didn't make a big announcement or call them out. I simply started limiting my time with them. Instead of seeing them every week, I'd see them maybe once a month. And guess what? I felt lighter. I felt freer. In that space, I realized just how toxic that friendship had become. Distancing myself gave me the mental clarity to see that I deserved better, friends who would build me up instead of tearing me down. Here's the thing, some people will tell you that keeping your distance is selfish. They'll say, but they're family, or you've been friends for years. It can feel uncomfortable, maybe even a little taboo, to admit that someone you know well just isn't good for you. Society tells us to be loyal, forgiving, and nice, but at what cost? Here's a little secret, protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's necessary. Taking a step back from toxic people isn't about being mean or cutting them off for good, it's about protecting your well-being. You have every right to choose your circle, and sometimes, that means letting go of relationships that drain you. You're not here to be anyone's emotional punching bag or their constant source of validation. Sometimes, the best way to show someone you've had enough is by simply stepping back. Here's where it gets deep. Keeping your distance is a powerful reminder that you are your own priority. You don't have to play the role someone else has assigned to you. You don't owe anyone access to your mind, your time, or your emotions. When you put a little space between yourself and disrespectful people, you're making a bold statement. Your well-being comes first. And that's not just self-care, it's self-respect. Distance also gives you the chance to refocus on the relationships that matter, the ones that genuinely uplift you. Think about it. The more time you spend around people who respect you, the more confident and fulfilled you feel. The less time you spend around those who tear you down, the less room they have to impact your thoughts, your mood, and your life. I used to feel so guilty about distancing myself from people, even if they weren't treating me well. I'd think, what if they think I don't care? Or maybe I'm being too harsh. But the reality is, when you let go of guilt, you start realizing how much of your energy you were giving away to people who didn't deserve it. Overreacting? But over time, I learned that distancing myself wasn't just about removing negativity, it was about creating space for growth. When I started giving myself permission to distance from disrespectful people, I felt a new kind of freedom. I had more energy, more peace, and a clearer vision of who I wanted in my life. So here's my challenge to you. Think about the people in your life who constantly disrespect you, who make you feel small or drained. Then ask yourself, do they really deserve this much access to me? Now, let's talk about one of the most timeless pieces of advice in the book, holding your head high. It might sound simple, even cliché, but trust me, this one is pure gold when dealing with people who don't respect you. Here's the thing, when someone is disrespectful, they're banking on making you feel small. They want you to doubt yourself, to lower your gaze, to shrink into yourself. But when you stand tall and hold your head high, you're sending a silent message that says, I know exactly who I am. You don't need to say a word for them to understand that you refuse to be belittled. Holding your head high is more than just a physical posture. It's a silent declaration of self-worth. It shows others that you won't bow to their negativity, that you have enough confidence in yourself to stand tall in the face of disrespect. It's an unspoken statement that you respect yourself too much to let anyone diminish you. So, next time you're faced with disrespect, take a deep breath, lift your chin, and walk with your head high. Let your presence alone speak volumes. The power is in how you carry yourself, and when you do it with pride, it's impossible for anyone to ignore. Just looked at them, unwavering. I didn't respond, didn't engage with their attempts to provoke me. I stood tall, held my ground, and let the silence speak for itself. The more I did this, the more I could feel the shift in energy. They tried again, with the same smirk, but this time there was no reaction, no crack in my composure. It threw them off completely. They didn't know how to handle it. Every time they made a jab, it just bounced off me. Eventually, their insults stopped altogether. It was like they realized that they had no power over me. My confidence, my unshakable self-assurance, became a wall they couldn't break through. And that's the magic of holding your head high. By refusing to let their words or actions affect me, I didn't just reclaim my power, I neutralized theirs. The more they tried to rattle me, the more unshakable I became. It's not about arrogance, it's about a quiet confidence that says, I know who I am, and nothing you say or do will change that. Here's the powerful takeaway. When you stand tall and hold your head high, you're not just defending yourself from their disrespect. You're teaching them a valuable lesson. Their attempts to control you through negativity or manipulation won't work. You're showing them that their behavior holds no weight in your world. They no longer have the power to make you feel small because you've claimed your space, your dignity, and your peace. Nothing to prove, because the truth is, you don't. When you walk through life with that quiet confidence, head held high, shoulders back, eyes steady, it sends a message that you're not afraid to occupy space. You're saying, I know who I am, and I don't need validation from anyone, especially not from those who try to make me feel small. People who try to disrespect you or tear you down often feel threatened by this energy. It's like they're trying to knock you off your pedestal because your confidence disrupts their sense of control. They want you to shrink, to doubt yourself, so they can feel superior. But when you stand tall, you take away their ability to manipulate you. You show them that their words, their actions, their judgments mean nothing to you. And here's the real kicker, the more you hold your head high, the more you'll attract respect, even from those who once tried to belittle you. Confidence is magnetic, and while some might initially see it as a threat, in the long run, it forces them to either step up or step back. Because when you're truly confident in who you are, others can either meet you there or get out of your way. So the next time someone tries to disrespect you, stand tall. Let their words roll off your back. Hold your head high and own your space. Your confidence will be a silent but powerful statement that says, I don't need your approval to be whole, and I certainly don't need your disrespect to know my worth. Over time, I realized that shrinking myself wasn't protecting me, it was giving power to those who didn't deserve it. The moment I started standing taller, holding my head high, and refusing to let their judgments affect me, I began reclaiming my power. It was like stepping into my own skin for the first time, owning who I am, without apology. Holding your head high isn't about arrogance, it's about confidence grounded in self-respect. It's a declaration that no matter how others choose to view you, you know your worth. It's about not allowing the negativity or dismissiveness of others to determine your value. You are not defined by their opinions, and you don't need to prove yourself to anyone. When you hold your head high, you're signaling that you're unshakable. It doesn't matter if they try to knock you down with criticism or disrespect, you're too rooted in your own truth to be affected. And the more you practice this, the less power their words will have over you. You'll stop shrinking. You'll stop making yourself small to make others feel comfortable. Instead, you'll start living in your own power, unaffected by the need for validation or approval from anyone. It's a quiet act of defiance, letting go of the fear of judgment, choosing to stand tall no matter what. Over time, this becomes your new normal. You won't just be walking taller physically, your confidence will radiate from within. And when you walk in your own truth, with your head held high, you'll realize that you're not only rejecting their disrespect, you're embracing your full potential. Statement that says, I am enough as I am, and I don't need to explain or defend myself. It's a reminder to both you and those around you that your worth is inherent, not dependent on their approval or validation. You don't need to shrink or shrink back, you simply need to stand in your own truth, unwavering, unbothered, and unyielding. When you hold your head high, you're not just rejecting negativity, you're embracing your own power. You're saying, I am worthy of respect, and I will not let anyone or anything undermine that. It becomes a shield against the toxicity others try to project onto you. No matter how subtle or overt their disrespect, you'll learn to rise above it, like water off a duck's back. It doesn't mean you're immune to feelings of hurt, but it does mean you're less likely to be knocked off course. You understand that their comments or behavior reflect more about them than it does about you. So, the next time you encounter disrespect, take that moment to pause, breathe, and stand tall. Hold your head high, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. Be unapologetically confident in who you are. Watch how much power you regain. You'll soon realize that their negativity doesn't have the hold over you that it once did. In fact, you'll feel empowered, not because you won, but because you chose not to engage with their energy. You chose your own peace. Never forget, the most powerful way to handle disrespect is by standing firm in your own self-respect. When you live authentically, embrace your boundaries, and refuse to justify yourself to people who don't respect you, you become magnetic. People who value you will be drawn to that confidence, while those who don't will fade away, leaving space for the positive and supportive relationships that you deserve. It's a process. It takes time to get comfortable with owning your worth and not bending to others' expectations or criticisms. But the more you practice self-respect, the easier it becomes to reject disrespect and live life on your terms. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You are enough just as you are. So hold your head high, trust your choices, protect your energy, and let your self-respect be the standard for how you're treated. This is the life you deserve, a life where you are respected, valued, and confident in your own skin. What a powerful message. Ending with a call to action like this really reinforces the importance of self-respect and confidence. By encouraging others to share their stories and connect, you're not only fostering a community of empowerment, but you're also reminding everyone that they're not alone in this journey. Keep spreading that positivity, and inspiring others to stand tall and embrace their worth. You've got this.